You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome. We are so happy to have you with us today. You're watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents A Better You. Lessons from the best coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. I'm your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. And I have hand-selected a team of people who are experts in their field, leaders, visionaries, strategists, coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. Our show is a presentation platform. It is not an interview show. And we will hear lessons today from two of my team members. Let's bring them on. Joining us from Texas, it's Mr. Red O'Laughlin. Hello.
Howdy, y'all.
And welcome from the state of Maryland, Mildred Muhammad. Hello, Mildred.
How you doing?
Hi, it's great to see both of you. And I'm looking forward to these two exciting lessons that we have. You guys picked great topics. So let me just explain to our audience what's going to happen. And then I'm going to spotlight each of you and ask you to share a little bit about yourselves before you present. Okay? All right. So our show, A Better You, as I mentioned, is all about bringing experts who share small bite-sized learnings, which we call lessons. So they will have 15 minutes to present, give or take. And then afterwards, I and the other person who hasn't presented yet will have a conversation. And then we'll take a break and we'll switch. And then we'll come back for the second person. So we didn't decide who was going first today. Is it ladies' choice or what do we think?
Absolutely.
Red.
Mildred, would you like to go first or you'd like Red to go first?
I'd like Red to go first.
Okay, Red, are you all right with that?
I'm perfectly right with that.
All right, excellent. I'm going to spotlight you. And Red, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? I'm going to get your banner. Tell us the value that you bring and the way that you help your clients.
I do three things very well. Number one is I write. I write every single day. Haven't missed a day now in 550 days or something. You can find my information on my website, on social media, on LinkedIn. But I write primarily on the areas of health and wellness. I research what goes on in the human body at the cellular level, biochemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat a symptom, you'll always be doing that. So I write. I help other authors write. So I get them into the book conceptual part, get the book done. I did that recently with Dr. Jacalyn. We worked probably for about 3.5 months from concept to the finished product, and then boom, a week later, she's the #1 best-selling author. Nothing to do with me. That was just her ability to do that. Regardless, I publish books also. That's the other thing I do. One of the certifications I have is in speaking. I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. I picked that up probably back about 2010. And today's topic is going to be unusual for me because normally I'm talking about health and wellness, longevity, a number of issues in those particular areas. But today I'm going to talk about speaking. And I'm going to try to say, how can we avoid the simple, easy mistakes, but also add some comfort, some consistency, and especially credibility to our speaking? That's what I plan on talking about today.
Wow, sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a little bit of feedback somewhere. Okay, thank you, Red. And yes, just to add on to what you said, Red and I worked together for several months, and it's the first book I've ever published, and I couldn't believe that he's got this great process that he uses, how streamlined the whole thing was, and now we're already well into the second book, so discussing how our approach is on that. So thank you again for all of your help. Mildred Muhammad, also someone I have worked with who has coached me and is also another person who's making incredible changes in the world. I'm going to spotlight you. Tell us about how you help your clients in the work that you do.
Okay. I am Mildred Muhammad. I am a certified professional and personal life coach or development consultant. I'm also an award-winning speaker. In my coaching, I help those who have been through abusive relationships, who just are unable to make simple decisions in their life based upon the trauma that they have been through, to identify the pain, let's break through it, and to give them tools that will help them to balance out their lives as they move along. So that's it in a nutshell. And I am happy about what I do, and I take comfort in helping other people find their purpose and work their purpose and know that everything that they're doing is for a purpose. And so that's what I enjoy doing.
Thank you so much, Mildred. Happy to have both of you here. Red, are you ready to go forward with your presentation, or should I take us to commercial break?
Broadcaster's choice. I'm ready if you're ready.
All right. Well, we will spotlight you. Mildred and I will be backstage, and please take it away. We will be listening intently.
Fantastic. Speaking, we all do it. However, it seems to be some kind of phobia when we have to do it publicly. I have a few tips today that I think will actually make your speaking a lot easier. The speaking nowadays seems to be mostly on Zoom, but my concentration today is going to be standing in front of an audience, because that's the real test. We can all hide behind the camera pretty easily, but we want to avoid easy mistakes. There's three parts to the speech. You notice I'm holding up three fingers. There's three parts of speech. The opening, the content, and the closing. So let's just start about the first part. And I chose three for a reason. When you're speaking to any group of people, three should be the maximum number of anything that you do. If you have the 10 best things you can do, probably not going to keep people's mind all the way through all 10. But whether you're speaking for 5 to 8 minutes, or you're speaking 15 to 20 minutes, or 45 minutes, try to keep it in series of three, because it can be broken down. But when you start the speech, that is where you introduce yourself to the world. They get to know who you are. Now, there may be somebody doing the intro saying, hey, this is Red Olaflin, umpty, 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 ump. But when you actually open your mouth and your presence is known, that is when you start connecting with the world. And depending on the purpose of your speech, that opening may be super critical to close down the road, because people want to know, trust, and have some confidence in who you are. So if you have the opportunity, and I've done this many times, wander through the audience so you know who's there. What are their issues? What problems can you solve for them? So if I'm going around, I'm talking to people ahead of time, and part of my speech, I know that Mildred said this and this, I may be able to use Mildred. I may just be able to look over in Mildred's direction and use her as some confirmation for what's going on. So if I said, yeah, I met with Jacalyn earlier today, and umpty. So it adds a little credibility to the fact that you're out there and interfacing with everyone. There's three typical ways we can open. There's many different ways, but I particularly today three. You can start with a quote. It might be something as easy as a person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new, Albert Einstein. And that can be introduced several ways. Albert Einstein said, or, and looking at today's whatever, it brings me back to thinking about, Albert Einstein said this. So a quote, depending on what you're speaking about, might be the best way to start. You're leaving somebody with some credibility up front. A question is another way to start. What mistakes do public speakers make? What mistakes irritate you, the audience, when you're seeing somebody up on stage? Yeah, mine are pretty simple. If the speaker is monotone, low energy, you kind of fall off and lose interest right away. If they happen to have a very distracting mannerism, I see a lot of people walking back and forth sideways. They don't know they're doing it. I'm more talking about the ahs and the ums and the nos and the likes and those things like that. Those are also distracting. But some people never pause. They just go, blah, just blast everything through. So as you're looking at what are the things that irritate you, and make sure you're not doing them. My favorite way to start most of the talks that I give is with a little story. And one of the stories I use is about two monks, an older one and a younger one, 400, 500, 600 years ago. They're traveling across France, and they're not allowed to talk to other people. They have very strict communication rules. They come across after about the first or second day, they come to this pretty hefty river, and there's a young woman sitting there with a couple bags, and she's pleading with them, crying, and she says, I need to get to the other side. I can't. I just can't do it. And they look at each other and they realize they really can't help this woman. And tears are coming down, and all of a sudden the older monk picks her up, picks up her two bags, takes her across, drops her on the other side. The other younger monk is just flabbergasted because it just does not understand what's going on. He crosses the river, and it just, for the next couple of miles, he's just fuming inside. Finally, the older monk turns around and says, "What is your problem?" And that's a lot to say for a monk back then. And the younger one says, "You touched that woman. You can't." And the older monk says, "I let go of that woman when I put her on the other side of the road. You're still carrying her." So you have a moral, and there could be several different morals in that particular one. But when we're not living in the present and we're resentful of things that have happened to us or to us, it's part of our life, our daily stresses. It's not something we want to live with. And I can go from that story into talking about mental health. I can talk about diet. I can talk about stress, disease. I could go a number of different places. So there's a lot of things you can do with the story depending on how you want to structure that particular story, and you can use it over and over again. Now, to me, two of the best ways of learning how to introduce a topic is TED Talks. I watch them every week, and just go to YouTube and put in the type of thing you want. If you want to know how to end a speech, how to start a speech, lots of good information there. And then you're finished with the opening. Now you have the transition. Transitions can be done in many different ways. It may be that you're standing in the center of the stage, and now all of a sudden you walk over to the side and you start talking to that side of the audience, and you gradually move back around. And maybe you just pause for a little bit longer than normal. Sometimes you can say, well, now I'm going to get to my new point, but that's not a real good way for a professional people know when you're going to the new point. So the transition might be just, in most cases, a little extra second. For the speaker, it sounds like 5 minutes of silence, but in reality, it may only be 5 or 10 seconds. Then tell them what you're going to tell them. Today I'm going to tell you about my 3x3 way of speaking. There's 3 things that I want to talk about. And in each one of those 3 things, there's going to be 3 things. So I'm keeping everything in the 3s. So when I transition to the body of my speech, this is the reason I'm speaking. And these ought to be the topics that I know backwards and forwards. So if my speech today is, say, how am I going to, what habits do centenarians, people over 100 years of age, have that they're active and healthy over 100 years of age? Well, it may be 3 things: food, exercise, and stress. Those are the 3 things. There's more than that, but those are the 3 things I want to concentrate on. So if my body is 3 things, food, exercise, and stress, I can memorize that pretty easily. That's simple. But if I want to put 3 things under food, it may be calories, choices, and portion control. So now I have foods, 3 things with foods. So I transition into foods. I talk about the calories. I talk about the choices of foods, carbohydrates, whatever it may have to be. And I talk about portion control. So those are the 3 things that cover that particular topic. And if I'm doing a 45-minute speech, I may go into 3 things about the calories, 3 things about the choices, 3 things about the portion control, but I never go more than 3. There's the things that are easy to remember, and people can keep up with the 3s. Then I said, and number 2 is exercise. Lots of different ways to exercise. It may be endurance, it might be strength training, it may be flexibility. Those may be the 3 I have that I put on a little note card, and as I'm preparing myself, I'm memorizing a note card because I want to come across as somebody who doesn't have to look at notes. I want to be somebody who's credible in whatever I'm really talking about. So as I'm thinking about exercise, what do I want to convey to them? I had a mission at the beginning of my speech. They want to live to 100. They want to be active, healthy. Okay, what kind of exercises can somebody do in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s that's going to help them that way? So I need to concentrate on the group that's out there. If I'm talking to a bunch of baby boomers, that's going to be a different talk on exercise than if I'm talking to a Zoom meeting where I have no idea who my audience is. And the last one, stress. Okay, I may talk about the symptoms of stress. How do you recognize it? What methods do we have to control it? And what daily rituals we might use. I always give this little talk about sitting at a street light that you know the light takes for it just super quick. If you're not the first three cars, you're not getting through. You pull up there, you're the fourth car, and all of a sudden the first car doesn't move. And you're saying, oh, I'm going to sit through this light again. And you start building up this stress level that you don't need. All of a sudden the car moves and you make it to the light as it turns. Now you're fuming, you're behind schedule, whatever it may happen to be. The easiest way to get rid of stress, absolutely guaranteed, is to smile. And so you can take little vignettes, little stories, and emphasize the parts that you want people to remember. So they're sitting at a a stoplight, and they remember to smile if something's going on. Same thing if I'm in a checkout line at a grocery store, and somebody's got everything rung up. Then they start going looking for their checkbook or their credit card or whatever. And now it's another 2 or 3 minutes before, or they're counting out pennies. And I smile, it just kind of takes that stress level down a little bit. So if you have 3 topics, 3 subtopics, and if you need to talk for a longer period of time, then break each one of those down into 3s. But the 3x3 program, for the context of what you're talking about, makes it easy. I can remember 3 topics. I can remember 3 subtopics. That stays in my brain. I don't need any other props. If I'm doing slides, and sometimes I do those, I only put the words food, choices, calories, and portion control. I think those are 3 I had. That's all I put on the slide. I don't put a whole lot of stuff on the slide. I just want to be able to talk to my main points, because otherwise, if I have a slide full, a bunch of people are going to be reading that. They're not going to pay attention to you. But if they're taking notes, they know what you're talking about and they can follow up. Now you have another transition. And this is the key transition. This is the one, depending on what you want out of your audience, this is where you're transitioning into your close. And this is super critical, because if you get finished entertaining them, educating them, inspiring them, now you want them to take some action. You may want them to buy your book. You may want them to go to your website. You may want them to do a number of things, but that has to be in your mind forefront as you're going through the entire presentation. So as you're going through there, now all of a sudden you're at that point in time, I got to tell them what I need them to do. An easy way to do that is to restate the main points. Well, we talked about foods, we talked about exercise, we talked about stress. These are the things that are critical if you want to live to 100. So you kind of rehash things very, very quickly. But you have to have strength and emphasis, because that they're paying attention. They know you're almost done. And if you're just kind of faltering a little bit and falling asleep, you're not leaving them. You had that strong opening. You had that educational or entertaining or inspiring part of your speech. Now all of a sudden you want to close stronger than you opened. You may want to tell a personal story to close things out. It says, remember earlier I was telling you about this? Well, that person was me. That's why I told you that story. And this is what it's done to me. Now you have your call to action if you're trying to sell something. And don't confuse value with cost, because cost is what we all look at. That, oh, it's going to cost me $99.99, whatever it may happen to be. But what is the true value? The value is what you need to sell, not the cost. If people recognize the value, it doesn't matter what the cost is. They're going to do that. Then you're sitting there and do you say, okay, next? No, you don't do that. You very calmly put on a smile on your face and you look at the audience, or you look at the host. It's evident to everybody, you're done. Just be a gracious host, be professional, and that is the end of it. That's your cue, Dr. Jacalyn.
I didn't know if there was another sentence. I was waiting, so.
Thank you.
Well done, and well done. I really like that 3, everything in 3s, because that's easy to remember. It's easy for people to listen to, and then it sets the stage for whenever you speak what people should expect. I like the use of the story also.
And if you remember 5 or 7 or something, they're too hard to get out of line. They're just 3s are easy to remember. People remember 3s. And when you're taking notes, it's just so much easier when you keep everything. And there may actually be 5 things. Pick the best 3. It doesn't matter what they are. And if people introduce you to another you may pull it. So last time I talked about these 3. Today I'm going to talk about these 3. There's a lot of different ways you can go. So just depending on how much time you have, as to how deep you want to go into a subject. And you know me, I can get pretty deep in some chemical issues that I just love to talk about sometimes. But it depends on what the nature is and what value do I want to add to my audience. That is the key, that you're trying to impart that knowledge or that inspiration, whatever it is. Those are the key elements. And we could talk about, the pausing and the inflections and the gestures. I mean, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but today I just want to talk about organization. And maybe next time we'll talk about some of those other little nuances that make the speech just a little bit more memorable.
Wonderful, thank you. You also mentioned about bullets on slides, and I wanted to bring something up. One of our team members who's watching, he likes using slide decks, and you didn't use one, and a number of our presenters don't use them or do use them. So just a quick discussion between the two of you. What are your thoughts, slide deck or no slide deck? Red?
I use them both ways. I can easily use a slide deck. In most of my Zoom meetings, I will use a slide deck, depending on what the nature is. I do a Chamber of Commerce speech on health and wellness every month. I will generally have probably 10 to 15 slides because I get pretty technical in some issues and people need to know what some of those things are. So depending on how technical I get, I want them to be able to have that information. But if I'm just talking like today in generalities, I generally don't use one.
Thank you. How about Mildred? What are your thoughts?
Mostly with the slide.
Oh,
Right.
Mildred, we can't hear you. Sorry.
I don't think I'm muted.
No, you're not. Your volume's really low.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
A little better, not much, but a little better.
Is that better if I talk like that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So, I use the slide decks when I'm training when I'm training survivors of domestic violence or how to be professional speakers, or the police department to give technical definitions to certain things. But otherwise, speaking like this, I don't use them.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Any feedback you have for Red, Mildred?
I enjoyed the three. I enjoyed the story, and you can take that story. I was thinking about all the different ways I could use that story.
Sharing. I love it.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring.
Yeah, it's a great story and applies to so many different ways.
It is. It's a great story. It could go into so many different topics, as you said. And I enjoyed about the three as well, and how to, even if it's 10, pick out the best three. Yeah. I thought that was very well. I probably will start doing that myself. Because that
now, when I talk about writing a book, I do the 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 method, because you need to amplify or expand, dig into, each chapter, what those things are. So It's not what I would do for speaking, because that's too much information to put out. But for a book, you want that level of detail. But for speaking, 3 by 3 is by far the easiest way I've seen to just instantly have credibility with people, because you know your topic so well, you can talk about it.
Absolutely. That was great. I enjoyed his whole presentation.
It was really good. We have a comment and a Facebook user. I know who it is. So I have to explain. I have a couple of private groups on Facebook, and you actually have to opt in on StreamYard for them to use your name if you're in a private group. Otherwise, they will not. So Facebook user unknown writes, the visuals of a slide deck help with information retention. Red, thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It depends on what your audience is and what you're trying to give them. If it's something that they really need to know the information, then the slide deck is obviously a better tool to use at that particular point in time. But if you're just trying to inspire somebody to make a change in their life, a slide deck may be distracting.
Right. Yeah.
Mildred?
I agree. Totally agree.
Okay. Well, there you have it. We've got an agreement. We've got a quorum. So I'm going to take us to commercial break. And this is actually the first time I've done this today, but I like doing this because I want to give people something visual to also look at and take away. We are going to be watching a performer whose name is ILO, I-L-O. She is represented by Licorice Dragon Records. Her manager is Tony Moore, who has a new single coming out, Route 66. It's coming out July the 2nd, and I actually have his video, which I'm not playing today, but I will. And we're going to listen to ILO, and then we'll be right back. Her song is called Heroes in Disguise. You can purchase this over on iTunes. I highly recommend it. I play it over and over and over again. The messages just leaves me with chills. Let's take a look.
Picture this, a life where you can leave your pain, a life where you can start again somehow. Picture this, a vision that can change a prayer, happy heart that's always there in the now. So don't be afraid of fear. You know, as long as we're still here, we can be anything larger than life. Rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, then turn it all right back around. We never imagined how good life can be. Inside you and me, we can see past these ghosts in the mirror. We're heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Picture this, losing everything you got, never having had a lot, but holding on and on and on. Don't be afraid to dream, 'cause we are so much closer than it seems. We can be anything larger than life. Rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, then turn it all right back around. We never imagined how good life can be, but inside you and me, we can see past these ghosts in the mirror. Yeah. We can be anything larger than life. Rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, then turn it all right back around. We never imagined how good life can be, but inside you and me, we can see past these ghosts in the mirror. Heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise. Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. The most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back. You are watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents Lessons from the Best. coaches, consultants, and trusted advisors. In our first segment, Red O'Loughlin gave his presentation, and we really looked at public speaking, confidence, comfort, the power of three, the power of storytelling. And Mildred and I had a little chat about it with him, and now we're going to go to Mildred. But what about that video with Ilo? Any thoughts on that in terms of being better? Isn't that inspirational?
Mm-hmm. That is very inspirational. Yeah,
Just a nice way of getting it across so it sticks with you.
Right.
Yes. So that's
music helps you to tap into those emotions that they're singing about, so that you can feel what they're feeling, and then go out and do that work.
Exactly. We actually had other guests on today. One had a lot of trauma and pain in his life, and he basically channeled it all through painting. And now he's a great artist, helping other people, helping youth get rid of their pain and suffering through the canvas. And then we had somebody else on who was a victim of rape, and she actually channels her pain through song and through poetry. So really different ways that people release. So Mildred, you are up. Are you ready to go?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, here you go. Have a great lesson.
Thank you. Thank you so much for Dr. Jacalyn's show. My topic today is self-care for service providers. Service providers make up police officers, first responders, sometimes in nonprofit organizations, anyone who has a direct connection with helping people to overcome the trauma that they have in their life. They are called service providers. Some are victim service providers, and some just want to be called providers. And there are even volunteers. So in order for us to understand what that is, not everyone is able to do this kind of work. It takes special people to do whatever their topics that they do. Everyone can't do the same thing, which is great, because we need everybody in every area of life to help us to overcome those obstacles that we find in our way. The challenge is maintaining resilience so we can keep doing the work that we want to do with care and energy. Some of the self-care practices that most people find comforting is eating, but we have to be mindful and exercise. Journaling is one of the best ways to tap into those certain emotions that may be so overwhelming that you don't want to talk to anyone about them. It's just best to write them down so that you won't get the feedback, or perhaps someone won't blame you for the way that things turned out for that person. Everybody is responsible for their own life, yes. And sometimes those traumatic experiences that we have, we really do need others to help us. If you are experiencing suicidal thoughts, please reach out to the suicide prevention hotline, because there are so many things that are happening. We're still in a pandemic. Some people still feel alone. They don't feel like they can reach out to anybody for help. And I just want to put that information out there. You don't have to go through this alone. There's always someone available to talk to you. You can go to, there are apps for therapy that are free. You can contact me on myfocusllc.com, and we can set up a free consultation to help you to get through those challenges that you may find yourself in, so you can move into a more healthier, safe, fulfilling life. We have to find ways to laugh a lot. Find a comedy that you have on TV. Find someone you can talk to where you can laugh about a certain thing. Sometimes laughter is the best medicine. Even in my speaking engagements, I try to include humor in my presentations, because I find that when you laugh about something, you will remember it more than what you normally would, because humor is one way where we can really get to the heart of what people are experiencing. If you do work with people and you find it's difficult for you to turn off your emotions, then you should go through a certain practice called on and off. So you get in your car, you touch something in your car to remind you to turn off your emotions because you're going to work. And when you get off from work, you touch that part again and you turn on your emotions when you're going home, because you want to be emotionally present with your family. And while you're at work, you want to be sure that your emotions do not affect your ability to help other people, because sometimes in those emotions, we tend to judge and make people feel that the experiences that they're having is their fault. And we may not be aware that of the certain words we're using that will help them to feel that way. And that's the last thing that we want to do, is make people feel that the experiences that they are having, it's their fault. Sometimes it is beyond their control and they don't know how to handle that. And we have to have empathy in order to help them to move along in their process. Everybody's process is different. Nobody's process is the same. So I can't tell you to hurry up and get over it. That's very insensitive. But what I can do is help you by giving you certain tools or giving you a journal to write in that will help you to process those things very well. Now, when you are helping other people, you have to set up healthy boundaries, because you can't go in with all of your emotions exposed, and then the people that you're hurting, they may hurt you, and then you will be defensive and say something that you should not have said. So set up healthy boundaries. Let your no's mean no, and let your yes mean yes. Stand firm on your decisions. Understand that they are your decisions and you don't have to change them if you don't want to. That's self-care. Is saying no when I don't want to do something and saying yes when I do. You should not have to be made to feel guilty because you don't want to do something that you don't want to do. We cannot play the hero in someone else's life. Their experience is their experience. We can't go to them when they are in traumatic experiences. If they are in a situation where the police need to be called, we don't go there. We call or have them to call the police in order to seek help. We have them to call these hotlines in order for them to get help. We do not play the hero in someone else's life. That is very inconsiderate, and we are not heroes to anyone, not only to ourselves. When we decide that we want to do something for ourselves that we know would get us out of that certain situation, then we do that. But for other people coming to you for help as a service provider, they're looking to you to be the expert. So as the expert, you have to distance your emotions and look at the situation and give them the best resources that you have available to you to help that other person, but never play the hero in someone else's life. Make sure that you have your security measures in place. Do not give your home phone number, your cell phone number to someone that you're trying to help, because you have just created a security breach. They shouldn't know where you live. They shouldn't know your home number, your cell phone number, your children or your spouses or significant others' private information. They will come to your home and they will ask you why you didn't help them. So always be security minded. Only meet the person that you're helping at your office. Do not meet them at a coffee shop, at a park. Don't do that, because you are putting yourself in harm's way, and your security level is now not where it should be if you're meeting someone outside of your office. Don't re-injure the person that you're trying to help. Don't tell them, well, if you would have thought about it, you should not have done that. You are not in that person's shoes. We have to be mindful when we're helping other people in their situation. Could they have done better? Probably. If you were in their shoes, would you have done the same thing? You don't know. So be mindful of what you're saying to other people and don't re-injure them because they don't want to do what you want them to do. Sometimes when we are trying to help other people, we may find that our colleague needs help. So how do you help your colleague? You don't help your colleague by finding out information and then telling everybody else in the office. That creates distrust, and no one wants to talk to someone they can't trust. Be the friend you wish you had when you were in a certain situation. Be better so that others can be better. It's very difficult to move along in pain when you know someone else is in pain. You have to help them. Every now and then you need to take some time off. I know we just come out of a pandemic. Some things are open and some things are not. Take the time to go to the park, buy some water, sit with yourself. Take your journal out there with you. Go on a cookout, ride your bike. Now we can travel on planes, subways, take a ride in the car with family members. Sometimes just being alone is a good thing for you too. Don't isolate yourself, because some of us, we feel like we've been isolated for a whole year as it is. So get out, enjoy nature, hug a tree, skip rocks in the water. Do those things you used to do when you were a child. We still have that inner child that we need to tap into and to help along as well. It's important that you always remember that regardless of whom or what, you are loved and you love yourself. You have your family and your friends with you. That pandemic really set us back a whole year, but it was global. We're all trying to catch up. We're all trying to do the best that we can with what we have. I am a domestic violence advocate, and I can tell you that domestic violence moved from a worldwide epidemic to a worldwide pandemic within a pandemic. And when telework went to stay at home orders, it really went to a position where no organizations, law enforcements were in place, any policies that were able to help anyone. But now that everything is open, we have new policies and procedures, and we are able to help everyone as best we can in every state. Some organizations are still unable to open due to some funding that was not available to them, but hopefully that will change very soon. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my presentation. If you know someone that needs help, or you feel that you want to help them and you don't know what to do, there's a domestic violence hotline. There's a, and it's 800-799-7233. There are many organizations for all types of issues that we all may find ourselves in. Suicide hotline, diabetes hotline, ways to lose weight, ways to understand how to get to sleep. All of our priorities have shifted in the last year. And all of us have said the things that we did last year or the year before, this is a new start. This is a new way of doing things. And this is how we're going to make better progress with ourselves than what we were before. So thank you, Dr. Jacalyn, for having me on your show. And I am grateful for this opportunity to share with your community.
Thank you, Mildred. Wow, that was really very powerful. Lots of really important and relevant information that you shared. I didn't know a lot of those things, the tips that you gave about how to stay safe for your service provider. So thank you very much. Red, I'm going to ask you for any comments, keeping in mind that our next show starts in 14 minutes.
Okay, let me pare down my notes here. Just give me a minute. Okay, obviously Mildred is a very professional speaker. Understood exactly what was going on. She did an exceptional job there. Defined, clarified at the very beginning who are our service providers and what does self-care really mean. And then she brought it down into what I thought was some really interesting areas that we typically don't think about being alone. You don't want to be alone. Apps available. It's a very serious topic, and I noticed that normally she has a very bright, vibrant smile, but she only used it one time in that because of the seriousness of the topic, and I think it was very well played when she did that. When we're the need for empathy, when we're judging and fault and boundaries and that guilt issue with self-care, and playing a hero, those things all went together well. They melded because each one played upon the previous one. I think the most important thing that I got out of it, more so than anything else, was the security breach. Only work with them in a professional setting, and that's it. No if, ands, buts, doesn't matter. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way. You're not their hero. You're there to help. And to me, that was probably the strongest takeaway that I had from it. But she transitioned very, very nicely. Her use of pauses emphasized what she was talking about. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Mildred. Look forward to your next one.
That was great. That's exactly what I was trying to come across too. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I do.
Thank you, Red, and thank you, Mildred. Thank you both for being here. We are actually going to close the show right now. So I want to thank everybody for watching. We've got In the Name of Love coming up literally in 13 minutes. So thank you for being here. If you missed any of our show, we'd love for you to subscribe to Dr. Jacalyn LLC on YouTube, and you can watch all of our shows there. A Better You actually has its own playlist. Just go to YouTube, in the search engine, put in Dr. Jacalyn LLC, go to playlists, and then you'll see A Better You. I think this week we are doing lesson 63, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we've been doing it for a long time. So anyway, thank you, expert presenters, team members. Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you again.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.